So everybody, real quickly, I want to know, does everybody know what a community foundation is, real quick? I have to do my little education session. So briefly, a community foundation is not unlike a nonprofit, like any other nonprofit. So what happens is the IRS sees the application and goes, oh cool, are you a community foundation or a private foundation? In other words, do you derive all of your monies from a pool of people, or are you getting it from one family? So it will be, if it was one family or one individual, it would just definitely be a private foundation. So we're publicly supported, just like any other nonprofit. We do have to pass the community support test, like you all do. You have to derive about 30% of your donations have to be from different individuals, not just one person, which is pretty cool. And I think a lot of people just have that, they just don't exactly know what a community foundation is. So again, pooled resources together by many donors, not typically one donor. Although there are community foundations that have actually received enormous amounts of gifts, and then they're out there going out and hustling for a $1 gift so they can pass that community support test. So the first one was created in 1914 in Cleveland, Ohio. There are about 2,000 across the community or the United States, about 3,000 around the world. Indiana probably has the most because Lilly Philanthropy or Lilly Foundation decided that they wanted to proliferate community foundations. So community foundations are found in every county and sometimes 2 or 3 times in each county. So here we have probably within a proximity of about 50 miles, we have about 6 community foundations. And so that, I think that always surprises people that they can be all over, and they are all over. So it's not just unique to Colorado. The assets are invested, so they produce a gain. We look to produce a gain, which allows us to give out grants. When you see somebody from a foundation say, oh gosh, we're worried about the investment, the portfolio, the stock prices, the stock market, it generally means they're freaked out about, oh my gosh, now we won't have as much to spend or give out. And typically, private foundations are, by law, actually have to give out 5%. Community foundations are not governed by that law, though we do give out much more than 5%. But that's another story for another day. So we're by the people, for the people, of the people. We like to call ourselves a catalyst, community organizer, people who get together, like to make sure that the community is community, as Sarah was talking to me so eloquently earlier about building community. And making sure that people are involved, making sure people are leading independent, generous lives. So there are 4 main focuses or functions of the Longmont Community Foundation. There are actually probably about 10 more. But anyway, the ones I'll talk about. Live and Give Longmont, which is our unrestricted dollars, our discretionary spending that generally every community foundation has. It's a pool of money, sometimes maybe called the community trust or whatever name it's gone by. We actually, a long time ago, it was the Longmont Community Foundation Endowment Fund, which just rolled right off the tongue. So we decided to do a community contest and change the name. And so Live and Give Longmont is what we decided to come up with because that was a cool name, so we went with that. The eligibility to receive funding, because it is relatively a small fund, is we look at organizations under $1 million in operating. They have to have board representation in the St. Vrain Valley. So somebody has to either work or live in the St. Vrain Valley. And then we have our January deadline. Here's the kicker. We've done this for, 12, 15 years. It's only general operating. So if you come, actually literally the application says this, if you come to us and go on the application and you don't pick anything but general operating, we will tell you don't do this, pick general operating. Because if you want to get program sponsorship or a project sponsorship, that's another bucket. But this is all for general operating, because we all trust you all to know what you're doing. We want you to go out, make it happen, and there's no reports. We're not asking for a long, lengthy report about how you're doing. We know you're doing great work, right? Right?
Right.
Brand new thing this year is we actually selected 20 to receive renewable grants, without question. We will check in, but they will get automatic renewal funding for 2025 and 2026. We want to expand it even further. We do steward, donor advised funds, specialty funds, scholarships. So in fact, we just gave out $223,000 worth of scholarships, thanks to the community. And When I first started, it was, I think we gave out 60,000.
Wow.
So it's been really exciting to see the growth there. 2-year, 4-year trade vocational, really anything. And one of the things that's been really cool is we've removed the barrier, the age barrier for trade vocational. Trade vocational, usually, as most people think, it's like, oh, okay, you're gonna be a freshman in college, at 18, you're gonna go and spend, what, the next, how many years of your life trying to figure out what you're gonna do? Some of us maybe never figure it out, right? But trade vocational, we always assume, like, you're 18, you should go become an electrician, right? You figured it out. It's like, no, we actually opened up the age. We actually just gave an award to a Latino woman who was told she couldn't be an auto mechanic by her parents and everybody around her, and she's 44 years old and just received a scholarship to go back to trade vocational school to become an auto mechanic. Pretty cool. We have agency funds, family funds, giving circles like a donor advised fund, which I'll get into, but it is comprised of many people giving amounts of money. So pooling the resources, giving a larger gift, creating a larger impact. Kind of that creating community thing. These are some of the projects we're involved. The one thing I want to invite you to do is, my card is on the desk. It's eric@longmontfoundation.org. Pretty easy to remember, but my card is on the desk. If you have anything you think we should be involved in, please give me a call. And if there's a special project you think you should be involved in, that's even better too. These are some of the things we do. Hope Direct, actually it's much more than $14,000. We have a partnership with Hope to actually provide direct support for those who are looking to get housing deposits, maybe auto repairs. And it's without question. We rely on their case managers to call us and say, we have this need, and we'll just write the check. So thank you, Alice, for that partnership. That's really cool. The Firearm Safety Fund over at UCC Church helps provide safety locks and safes for those who have firearms in the home, making sure that those firearms are safe and kids do not find those firearms unlocked. Ben's Club is through the Longmont Police Department. Police, when they see somebody in need, they're able to give cash money on the spot. So if they run across somebody just recently who ran out of gas, person has no other resources, the officers are able to just give cash. Alta Community Gardens, yes, we manage a community garden in partnership with the City of Longmont, creating community there. First American Funds, partnership with El Comité. Thank you, Lisa. It's been really pretty cool. We've given out 7 awards right now. We're paying for this N400 applications, about $760 right now. It went up recently. And a lot of $760 to a lot of people is unapproachable if they want to become a citizen. So we'll just pay that. Again, we'll just pay that to you all. We trust you all to make it happen. You've got great legal expertise. And again, the thing that I didn't know, and everybody's probably going to say, gosh, Eric, where have you been? I didn't know if you make a mistake on that application, it's not just like, oh, oops, you get to make a mistake, you get to do it over again. That could lead to really severe consequences. Early Child Care Alliance too. Whoops, I turned off my TV. But the ECA, so Bob was talking about that, and Sarah also is from the ECA, but we're in partnership with a coalition to look at doing something to make childcare more affordable and raise the wages of those providing the childcare. So the Donor Advised Fund, this is the one that everybody always mystified by. It's basically, the way I'd explain it, it is a fund within a community foundation. Really, it can be any vehicle, charitable vehicle that is. Fidelity has $70 billion of donor advised funds. Schwab Charitable has multi-billion dollars of charitable funds, donor advised funds. And back in the 90s, I would say, the first one came out in the 50s, but really the 90s was the heyday of the donor advised fund. It still continues to be. It is where an individual, if they don't have the means to have a private foundation, which should be about $10 million these days, thereabouts, in estimation, they should really look at maybe something a little bit more, closer. Maybe they want to do a donor advised fund. So they want to get there, maybe they're in family involved, maybe they want to make decisions. It usually becomes a need of necessity that they had a life event. Somebody passed away, left them several assets, and they're going, okay, I want to be charitable, but I have no idea where I want to give this money to. And so that's a lot of the times where a donor advised fund is involved. We always want people to go out in the world and give to charity. So if it doesn't work with the Longmont Community Foundation, our mission is not to provide support to the St. Vrain Valley and make sure it comes through the foundation. It's to make sure that we're supporting the community. So if it doesn't work with us and it doesn't work with a donor advised fund or any other vehicle, let's give it directly to an organization or steer them in the way of you all to say, hey, this is a great fit for this person. So one of the things that we do is the donor advised fund holders actually like to make grants every year and like to check in. So right now I'm in a series of doing even more check-ins and just making sure that they're wanting to make grants and they're able to make grants and they have questions. So for me, it's always good to hear the updates around the room and go, aha, wow, that's interesting. I've got to check in with Mary to see how that site is going, and I've got to check in with other people to figure out what's going on with their organizations. Our partnerships are built upon innovation. The foundation itself is the only foundation that I know of, a community foundation that's fully remote. We don't have an office. We gave up the office to save on money, therefore giving more money out, presumably. We do sponsor events. We want to amplify those events per our DEI or EDI policy, if you will. We connect donors with nonprofits and issues. Again, it doesn't have to run through us. Let's get everybody involved in the charitable giving space. We host trainings, partner with consultants. And then, as Sarah will probably speak of, is that, we're unfortunately, community foundations have become a really big vehicle for disasters when they happen. Climate change, immigration, other things precipitating the need for us to step into this space. Obviously, the Marshall Fire, tragic, event that the Boulder Community Foundation was able to help out with enormously. But this is just, unfortunately, this is just the world we live in. We hope it doesn't happen, but to that end, we have a partnership with the City of Longmont. We have a disaster policy, and the Emergency Preparedness Department is, we visit regularly and decide what we're going to do if something does arise. In fact, in late December, there was a 3-year-old shooting victim. If you all remember, of a drive-by shooting, we actually raised some money for that victim and were able to present that gift to them. And then these are our strategic projects, again, kind of built around the core principles of equity, diversity, inclusiveness. We are doing our Neighbor Meets Neighbor, which is a video series about portraying people who live in our community and who they are. And we really want people to come to this and look at this and go, gosh, I never knew that this person lived in the community. I never knew what it was like to live in that person's shoes. That's really what I want to happen, but we'll see what happens. That one will probably drop here pretty soon, the next month or two. Affordable housing, we supported Prop 1 of 23, 1B. We're looking to educate the staff and the board on our next kind of vehicle to get towards affordable housing. We had some interesting ideas as far as impact investing, but we really want to look at educating people first and figure out where we want to move next. Direct giving, talked about Hope Direct, Ben's Club, El Comité, the New Americans Fund. We're looking at other things. Our equity action items. I would say a simple thing is just looking at vendors. Who do you all use for vendors? That was one thing that we decided to change up. We adopted an equity statement. You can see that right on the front page of our website. But it's been a really great journey. I've been here for, more years than I care to count anymore. But it's just, part of it is all comes down to, it's not about me, and it's really not about foundations, it's about you all, and how can we help you? So my parting thought is, how can we help you? And we want to grant more, give out more money. We want to make it easier. So we always look at our application. Right now it's a page, a bunch of yes and no questions, and maybe a couple of things you have to fill out. But how do we make it even easier? God forbid we actually need an application. Anyway, but we'll see what happens. But we want to evaluate all the scholarships, programs that we do just to make sure that they're effective.
All right, thank you. Hello, I'm Sarah Harrison with the Community Foundation. I haven't quite reached a 1-year anniversary, so I'm hoping I get a lot of grace for 3 years is what I'm hoping for. I said I believe that's at least how long it takes to be doing this job in a in a capacity that I would be proud of. So I've lived here for 10 years in the Lafayette, Erie area. I worked at a community foundation a long time ago before this in the Midwest, so I appreciated all Eric said. I was in Ohio, so Cleveland was our very big older sibling there. And then I worked for a family foundation. So I've spent the last 20 years in philanthropy. Before that, I was working at a homeless shelter, childcare resource or referral, and after-school tutoring. So the nonprofit sector is my heart, and it's so much of what I believe in. So I'll talk to you a little bit. I'm just going to talk about grant opportunities. So how can you get funding from us? Because I figured that's what you all were most interested in for today. But always happy to answer questions. I do have cards there. Myself and my staff reach out to us. We are trying to go out and visit as many people as we can. There's a lot of you and only 3 of us, but we're doing our best. So just reach out if you have questions or need any support. We're here to help you. So, okay, and we do have also on our website a video that walks through all of this. So don't feel like you need to take notes here now. The video is up on our website, and I can send a link for that so you can see it in another format with also more than just me doing the presentation, although I'm always happy to. So I'm going to talk about our 2024 grant cycles, a little bit about that. So that's Community Trust, our equity funds, 15 Forever, which actually just closed. I'm going to skip over our grant software and application details, but if you have any problems with our online portal, just send us a message. So you can see here, this is our 2024 grants calendar. So right now we just closed 15 Forever, our youth philanthropy initiative. And right now we're taking applications for Community Trust. So I hope everybody in the room is working on theirs. Hopefully it's easy. It's pretty much a duplication of last year. So I always say copy and paste as much as you can. Especially if you got a grant, then you knew something was working for last year. No guarantee for this year, because I'm going to talk about some of the changes that we've made. But it gives you a good sense of where to start for that. So we're closing that on Thursday at 5 p.m. is the deadline for that. So next week, Thursday. And then equity funds, so this is Bravo Fund, support for the Latino community, Open Door Fund, LGBTQ plus community, and then our Veterans Fund. Those are gonna be in the fall. So opening August 5th, closing September 5th. And you'll see, my hope is that this is our rhythm and pattern for Community Trust grants. So we made a move from doing them in the fall to now hopefully around this time of the year next year. So it's always those darn Saturdays and Sundays that get me, because I always want a very set deadline, but it doesn't always work that way. So many of you know Community Trust. In our grant making, we went through a process to evaluate what we were doing. A lot of you participated in that. We're asked to give feedback on that. So that's what you see here today. So our applications and reporting are simplified and shortened. We no longer have progress reports. We do, unfortunately, still have one final report that's required, but it can be really simple. So I'm telling organizations, give us something you've already produced. So your annual report, a story that you wrote, a blog post, something that highlights your work that you're really excited about. Send that to us. This year it'll be in our online portal, and we're happy to take what you've already produced for yourselves or your other audiences. And we fund in these areas, so animal care and welfare, arts and culture, civic engagement, education, the environment, and health and human services. We do have our grant applications are reviewed by community members. So we look to those that are in the community to do these reviews. We have about 80 volunteers that review your grant applications. So if you're interested in being a reviewer for us, you can. We usually just put you in a different sector than what you're applying for, but we know so much of the work that we're doing is interconnected and are happy to have you join us. So we have about 5 or 6 slots left for this year. We're almost about to close it out for volunteers, but reach out if that's something you'd be interested in doing this year or next. So a couple of key things for Community Trust. We're doing awards for general operating support. So you'll see, as Eric said, this is the trend of where philanthropy is headed. And new this year, the minimum grant size will be $3,000. So what we heard in the Community Trust redesign is that organization said giving us a grant for $1,000 is nice, but we really want you all to shift towards larger grants, although it'll mean fewer organizations receive funding. But we've made a shift from $1,000 minimum this year to $3,000. So last year we got in about 208 applications for community trust. We made 145 awards. So this year the 145 will be less, but at a larger grant amount. So that's something we heard from the community. So 2 things to know in terms of where our priority is at, because you can tell we get a lot of applications in. So really, in terms of thinking about your work, we give priority to organizations that are committed to equitable outcomes for historically marginalized populations. It's one of the key questions in the application. And the second is really looking at how do you as an organization involve those with lived experience in the design and delivery of your programs. So it might be that you engage volunteers, people as board members, staff. How are you hearing from those that you're serving, and really having that be part of the fabric of your organization. So then equity funds, I talked a little bit about this, and I want to leave time for questions because I'm sure this group is going to have some. Equity funds has one centralized application for all 3 funds. It's the same application, just with a simple drop down. You can apply to multiple funds. So if you're doing work that's serving the Latino community and you're doing work that serves the LGBTQ plus community, you'll submit 2 applications. We have 2 different committees. They're 2 separate funds. Those applications are reviewed just by the ones that are submitted for each fund. And for these, it can be for general operating or for program support or something more specific. And this minimum grant size is $1,000 just based on the amount that of funds available. I'm not going to talk about 15 Forever because that one just closed, but a great youth philanthropy program. Youth raise the money, they make the decisions, they review grant applications. If any of you know of youth that would love to participate in this, it's really a great program to get some experience in terms of philanthropy and just understanding the needs in the community. And this is our webpage. That's the only thing I would note on this is that you can go to comfound.org/grants, and that will bring up all of our funding opportunities and the calendar and all of the information that I shared here. So that's really your go-to place for that. And I'm not going to go through all of the technical stuff, but just reach out if you have questions. And then I'll leave you with this. So I'm working with Sarah Mickelson that I know many of you have worked with in the past. She is delightful, and she's been gone for the last week. I'm like, Sarah, you can't leave me here alone. She's lovely to work with. And then Sydney Zarensky is a new staff member of ours, but a lot of you will also have contact with Sydney as you're filling out your application.
I'm going to go low tech and just do paper because I couldn't really think as I was thinking about this whole process about what kind of slides to do because I've been mulling it over for a couple of weeks trying to think what's the best approach. So what I want to do is just tell you a little bit about private family foundations. We are a private family foundation that serves the Longmont and St. Vrain Valley community and also communities serving Absaroka and Nye, Montana. A private family foundation, like Eric said, is funded generally by either a family or one individual. Ours was funded by Henry Brawley. His parents actually were original, I know there's a particular phrase for it. Homesteaders, that's it. It was like pioneers, that doesn't sound right. You can have a pioneer plate, license plate. But anyway, so he was born and raised in Longmont. He and my husband worked together for many, many years. My husband started as an employee of his and then became a partner. I was in a lot of nonprofit work, and that's where Henry got me involved in his private family foundation. The foundation was started in 2006. I spoke with him briefly in those first couple of years. He wanted me to participate, and then he went in a different direction, found some funding around 2014, 2015, and at that point we had about $20,000 to give out each year. So we did what they call dinner table funding. We would sit and talk about different organizations to support in the St. Vrain Valley. He then moved to Nye, Montana, and then he wanted to support that community there. The community in Montana is tiny. There's a one-room schoolhouse there that is a K through, I want to say 8, but generally that teacher, if she can, she sends the middle schoolers on to the bigger school that's in Absorki, because they're just a little bit more wily, as we can all imagine middle schoolers are. Then our high school graduating classes from the high school that we support in Absorki is right around somewhere in the 20s. So really super small community. They really struggle there with all sorts of things that different rural communities struggle with as far as having teachers, funding, all sorts of things like that. So we work in kind of vastly different areas because the St. Vrain Valley School District is very large in comparison. And our impact that we can make here, given the small amount of dollars that we can give out as compared to what we can do there, is very different. However, we're constantly struggling to find ways to help there because there are so few funding opportunities, because there's just so few nonprofits in the area, unlike our robust nonprofits that are here. And it's just really impressive to be in this room with you all and just hear all of the great work that you're doing and how we support our community here and how we can support our community members. So that's really special. But anyway, so we're a private family foundation. We are required to give out 5% of our corpus each year, and that's kind of a complicated process to figure out. And I have to say, sadly, our founder passed away in 2020, and our foundation grew immensely. And so we're still kind of in a growing phase, a learning phase. We had assets we had to sell. I let my husband sell our house. I never imagined that I'd be selling other houses and properties. So that was a really big learning process. And then, so this year we're finally getting to a point to where we can maybe become more of a foundation. I sit on with a group of peers with Philanthropy Colorado. I feel like am I clicking? There's like, I can hear some feedback. Anyway, that other family foundations in Colorado you might be familiar with is the Betcher Foundation, the Gates Foundation, the Buell Foundation. You know, they fund very large things, and they're very large foundations. We're really small, but we're really fortunate that we can help here in the St. Vrain Valley. So let me just really quickly tell you what, I'm gonna have to put my glasses on for this. So our foundation was started in 2006. In 2020, we had a really big change. We, as a private foundation, we are regulated so that we're not really able to fund individuals, so we have to fund nonprofits that then can give to individuals. We're also not allowed to fund political campaigns or initiatives. And in terms of, you know how Eric said that they've gone completely virtual, part of some of the rules that we've had to figure out is that in a private family foundation, there's a lot of rules about self-dealing, so we actually do not have to pay, we're actually not allowed to pay to be in the office space that we're in, because the founder, one of the companies that he had, that my husband runs now, is Frontier Companies. That's our physical office, but we're not allowed to pay rent there because the IRS sees that as self-dealing, like paying back the person who started us. So we also don't have that overhead. We have 2 part-time staff people, myself and Piper Brawley Ortega. So we try to run lean and small, and that's how we operate. We have 3 areas of funding. We have our birthday advisory fund that encourages our family members to choose something that speaks to their heart, and we fund based on those requests. And then we also have scholarships. We have a really great scholarship program. We give out 13 scholarships, and then we have another bucket of money that we work with grants. We are this year in the process of creating our first grant process, and that is going to be, let me get the right piece of paper here. Our approach to funding, we will have an invitation for grant applications. We are currently creating this, and we hope to invite organizations to participate later in 2024. The goal is to make it simple, as you know, the discussion here today has been trying to not create barriers to entry and making it like a really long application process. We are considering the Colorado Common Grant application and how we might be able to incorporate that for those of you who already have completed that. But we won't require all the information that's included in that. We will be able to invite 5 to 6 organizations to participate in grants of about $5,000 to $10,000. In the past, we funded educational videos for new parents, scholarships for students to attend preschool, teaching position at a private school, special programs for field trips for elementary age students, special needs programs, instruments for schools. We've assisted with funding for a rural school district's football field, scholarships for graduating seniors that including students who are pursuing trade certifications. We have a scholarship for second year UNC teachers or students seeking a teaching degree. And we also have a trade scholarship for students over 21 years of age that are returning to school. For those in Colorado and here in this area. We've also supported the Longmont Youth Symphony and the St. Vrain Mountain Bike Team. So we try to also just, the impact, like I said, in the school district can be a little more challenging because there's just so many more students and teachers to support. Let's see, our vision is learners to have educational opportunities and relationships that allow for them to meet their potential. Our mission is that we enhance education for learners from cradle to career through scholarships and grants. And let me see if there's anything else. Our priority is for funding educational opportunities in areas that we serve. I want to say that one of the things that was on the list for us to talk to you about is strategies and suggestions for applications for grants. I think it's really important to create and build relationships with those that you ask for money from. Back in the days when I was asking for money, it really made a difference that I knew the people that I was asking money from. And when we had the big change in our assets for the Brawley Family Foundation, I grabbed a person who's been very involved. She's now retired, but in the philanthropy community here in Longmont, and she said, money is given to people that we know. The organization kind of is behind that, but so just remember that. And the reason why I say that is that probably 18 months to 2 years ago, I received what looked like an email that was just kind of a blanket request for information, and we all have busy lives. We all get a ton of emails. I read it multiple times, and I was like, this is such a weird email. It almost looks like it's spam. So I didn't respond to it. Well, if that person would have called me and followed up, I would have known that it was serious and it wasn't spam. But I kept reading it, and I thought, well, I'm not sure if I should respond to this because I just don't really feel comfortable with it. And as we all know, there's all sorts of stuff going on out there. So don't leave it at an email or a text, which can be really hard. And I work with a woman who's a millennial, and I think that when I see her, sometimes she just reaches out by text or email, and I think we need to still make those phone calls. So just remember that. Sometimes with our social anxiety, that can be really challenging to overcome, but you've really just got to reach out and make those contacts and not let that be your last point of contact is, well, they didn't text me back or they didn't email me. Because it may just be, like I said, they may not know who you are, or here's what always happens to all of us. Something that shouldn't end up in junk ends up in your junk email box, and you never know you even got it. So that's one of the tips I have to you all as a group. And I think that's it. So do you have any questions?
Do you have a website?
Good question. Excuse me. We are in the process of still growing. We have a website, but it's not active, so you can't look at the website right now. My email address is toni at, and let me just explain how it works, so it'll kind of help how, because everybody says, your website's Cobra. It's CO for Colorado, and then our foundation name is Brawley, so BRALY. FF for familyfoundation.org. So no, our website's under construction. We are in the process of rebranding, so we want to do a new logo. So my business cards are out of date, and when we first started with our foundation, we had Gmail accounts, which we're not really checking anymore. That's what's listed on my business card. So that looks like I'm not very well prepared, but that's where we are. And I apologize for that. And I'm sorry I got something stuck in my throat. But that's it, unless there's any other questions.
Hi again, everyone. Again, I'm Rowena Naidu. I'm the Vice President for Policy and Community Initiatives at Mile High United Way. You may have heard of Mile High United Way and the United Way movement. Mile High United Way is actually the very first United Way in the entire world. It was all started in Denver back in 1887 when an incredible woman named Frances Weisbard Jacobs led some faith leaders into helping the community. She saw needs out in the community. She saw what was nonprofits back then working really hard to support families in need, and said, you know what, you're doing such great work, you shouldn't have to worry about fundraising. We're going to fundraise for you. We're going to give you funding, and you just concentrate on the work that you're doing. So we come from a very rich tradition of supporting our nonprofit community. And again, all started in Denver in 1887. So I'm going to talk to you today about our flagship grant-making program called the Strategic Investment Grants. It's been around for quite a while in our history, and it exists to support high-performing nonprofit organizations in the 7-county metro area. And we focus on organizations providing high-quality early childhood education, academic and educational success, and creating economic opportunities for all, which shows up for us as basic need supports. Our strategic investment grants are awarded through a competitive, community-driven process. It's competitive because we never have enough funds to support the need that's out there. So we have lots of organizations making lots of financial requests. For instance, last year we had over 150 organizations applying to us, requesting over $16 million in funding, and we were able to fund just under 80 organizations with about $2 million. So highly competitive process. And it's community driven because we engage our nonprofit organizations in the creation of the application, in the creation of the RFP. Our nonprofit partners, our community members are all part of the review process as well. And I'll talk to you about that in upcoming slides. So here are our community priorities, and this guides all of our work. So we're looking at early childhood education, or giving all children a strong start, supporting education and academic success, and then creating economic opportunity for all. Our work is equity focused, so we do focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, but we have also included representation in there. So we love to hear about the diversity, equity, and inclusion journeys that all of our organizations have been on, but we also want to know, as part of their application, what does representation look like? How are the decision makers of your organization representative of the people that you're serving? So the decision makers would be the executive director, the executive team, and the board. So for instance, if you are an organization that is focusing on women and girls issues, what does that representation look like with your decision makers? How many people that make up your executive team and board identify as women? If we're talking about the issue of the unhoused, how many of your decision makers actually have that lived expertise or relevant experience that are making the decisions for the organization. We introduced a new component to our grant making called coordinated impact. It's like synchronized spelling, but for grants. This is where we're funding organizations that are working on similar issues, and it's been fantastic for Megan and me to be able to hear from the organizations about all of the great work that they're doing, but we found that it was even more important for our organizations to hear from each other. So as part of our new way of doing grant making, we'll be bringing organizations together to talk about what they're finding in their data. So if they're an organization providing food or working in the food insecurity area, we'll be bringing organizations that are doing similar things where they can talk about the data, where we can find out what are the gaps, what are you seeing, what are the trends that are out there that we may not be seeing if we're just talking to you one-on-one, but if we can see it when everybody is together, what are those trends that we really need to be paying attention to and looking at. We also use 211 data. Are you familiar with 211? No? Okay, so 211 is an incredible service that exists in the United States and Canada. And in Colorado, we have wall-to-wall coverage in Colorado for 211. So regardless of where you are in Colorado, you can dial 211 and you'll be connected to a help center that will be able to refer you and in most cases give you a warm handoff to an agency that could help you. So if you're looking for childcare, if you're looking for housing, if you're looking for food, whatever it is that you may need, call 211 and they'll be able to connect you. Our 211 call center through Mile High United Way has been collecting data about those high needs in every county that we serve and beyond. And so we're using that data to also inform the work of our nonprofit partners, to inform our RFP, to make sure that we're not missing anything, to make sure that there aren't any gaps there. This is the geography that we serve, so 7 counties: Adams, Arapahoe, Boulder, Broomfield, Denver, Douglas, and Jefferson counties. And that's through our strategic investment grants only. So we're on a 2-year grant cycle, so we fund over 2 years. Our cycle is about to enter year 2, so July 1st, we enter year 2, and it's a non-competitive renewal process for those organizations that were funded in year 1. So we're looking at things in their final report, their performance. We also take into consideration the amount of funding that we have, because we do not have an endowment and we're fundraising every year, just like most of our nonprofits. So these are our funding priorities. It's all under the umbrella of a community united to create opportunities for all. We're looking at access to housing, access to food, out of school time programming for children up to age 12, early childhood education, legal services, and tax preparation. The legal services and tax prep we found to be supportive of many of the other issue areas that we're funding, because families that might need housing have found that there are some legal issues that they need support with, and so we fund legal services. Families that have kids in childcare might have access to things like the earned income tax credit or the child tax credit and may not know about it, so tax preparation becomes really important for those families. So our proposals take into consideration the budget size of an organization when we're looking at how much they can apply for it. So these are amounts that an organization can apply for, not necessarily the amount that they may be awarded. So starts at $10,000 and it can go up to $200,000 if an organization has the Child Care Contribution Tax Credit designation. Those early childhood organizations, are you familiar with that designation? Familiar with that? Fantastic. It's really important. It's a wonderful fundraising tool. It's great for your donors as well. And it allows us to be able to invest more into organizations that have that designation. It is for programming for children up to age 12, which is why out of school time programming stops at age 12. We're also looking at priority populations. So for organizations applying to us, at least 75% have to, 75% of the people that they're serving have to identify as historically marginalized. And this can be women, people of color, people who are experiencing homelessness, veterans, and so forth. And we're looking at the 300% federal poverty level guideline. So federal poverty level at 100% is what people typically talk about when they're saying somebody is living in poverty, and we know that at 300% and sometimes even higher than that, families are still in need and still need support. So we're willing to go up there. We have lots of eligibility requirements and ineligibility requirements, and I'll send this out to you so you can take a look at those in more detail. Just in a little bit more depth about our community goals, we worked with about 50 nonprofit organizations to identify these goals using their data, our 211 data, and some community data. So everybody working on this came up with a goal for each of our funding priorities. So the goal for housing was that homelessness is preventable, rare, brief, temporary, and non-recurring. It's kind of similar to what HUD has. They also came up with the strategies that we would be focusing on. So for housing, it would be keeping people in their homes, so working towards home ownership, safety net or immediate needs, which would show up as drop-in centers or safe parking initiatives, overnight shelters, particularly for those survivors of domestic violence, transitional or temporary supportive housing, or affordable and stable housing. So our organizations came up with this. They also came up with the reporting requirements that would go along with it. Same for access to food, tax prep, legal services, out of school time, and early childhood education. We do have an online platform, but we've done our grant applications a little bit differently for this most recent application process. So we have organizations logging into our Salesforce CRM system and uploading financial information, some basic organizational information, and they got to sign up for a Zoom call. So we did our applications over Zoom rather than something written. We prepped our organizations. We had trainings with them. We worked with an acting group, an improv group, to provide trainings on how they could best present their work. Everybody received the questions ahead of time. They had a set amount of time, so 25 to 30 minutes to present to us, followed by some questions, if there were any questions from our reviewers. It went over so well. So this is what the sign up looked like. Every organization got to sign up for a time slot that worked for them. So they had about 30 minutes. They could invite up to 4 people to be on the call. And this could be staff members, it could be clients, it could be board members, community members, anybody they thought could help them tell a really good story about their work. And it was phenomenal. Our organizations brought it. They did such a great job. We got to hear from clients. I cried so much. They did such an amazing job. And we had community reviewers. We always have community reviewers as part of our process. We included them here. So on Zoom, they did not have their videos on, so videos off, and we changed their names to be something more encouraging of the organization. So they had things like, "You've got this," and "We believe in you," "Live United," things that would encourage them. So our reviewers just saw Megan and me, some hopefully friendly faces to them, people that they knew. And then if reviewers had questions, they just filtered those questions through me, and I got to ask it on their behalf. We did 156 calls in 28 days. Wow. Yeah, it was pretty remarkable. Yep. Oh, whoops. Just a few more things. The 211 database, it's online. You can look up 211 Colorado. You can search the database to see if your work is on there. If not, please reach out to 211. We'll be happy to add you to our database. We do have a nonprofit directory, so I will share contact info. My card is here as well. We send out a link to a Microsoft form where we have organizations complete information about themselves. Every so often we have a donor or a company who comes to us and says, who is working on this very specific thing? And we don't always know, but we're hopeful that through the directory we'll be able to lead them to the right organization. The nonprofit directory also comes in very handy when we have smaller grant opportunities, and we've done away with applications for those. We're trying to invoke the Mackenzie Scott model of doing philanthropy. Are you familiar with Mackenzie Scott? Mackenzie Scott is the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos. Mile High United Way was one of the very first recipients of her generous funding, and we had no idea that we were being looked at. So with some of our smaller grant opportunities, we do the research behind the scenes and then just let the organization know that they've received funding. We are also the administrators for the Community Acts Fund, and ACTS stands for Arts, Culture, Transformation, and Science. It is for nonprofit organizations that are funded as Tier 1 organizations through the SCFD. And we have a community council that helps with those funds, so you can always reach out and ask us more about that. We are heavily engaged in policy and advocacy, particularly at the state level, but we're also doing a little bit of work on the federal side and very little on the local side as well. We can get you signed up to receive our policy and advocacy newsletters. We provide educational opportunities for bills that we're taking positions on and for ballot measures that we're taking positions on. Some of the ballot measures that we're looking at coming up in November are going to affect a lot of your work. So if you sign up, we'll be having those education sessions that you can invite your teams, your boards, wherever you'd like. And then Mile High United Way is about to open up our own early childhood center in our building. We are opening up the Tamara M. Sparks Early Childhood Center at Mile High United Way, the very first one for us. We will be supporting up to 60 little ones, so infants and toddlers, with full day high quality care and education, and we're partnering with Mile High Early Learning to do that. And there's our contact information for grants. Also happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes?
So is the next grant cycle in 2025?
2025. Our plan is to release it in January of 2025, and then funding will begin July of 2025 for those organizations successful through the process.
For the previous one, do you know how much was granted here in Boulder County?
Gosh, I'm not sure of that. We can do a little bit of digging and get that to you before we leave.
Great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, as a grantee for the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition, board member, always appreciated coming down for the training because we needed it.
Oh, great.
It
Yes.
was very helpful.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. Yes, that's another thing we provide is capacity building training for our strategic investment grant partners. And they span the gamut from board development training to program development, evaluation, fundraising, financial stability, diversity, equity, and inclusion, pretty much whatever it is our organizations need.